Good morning. Good morning. And what I'd say, what an honor it is to be with you this morning here in beautiful Kansas City. I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. I know last night was a late night, and I kind of want to reflect on what I talked about last night in this morning's remarks. Last night I talked about where we are as a nation and where I believe we can go forward as a nation. And I think one of the things that ties us together and will make it work is believe in one's faith. You read the headlines, you read the news stories, and church attendance throughout the country is down. And I think that honestly, the events that are happening not only in our nation but in the world are a direct result of that drop in church attendance. But I want to talk to you about that this morning. I know it's been a pretty busy day for all of us, but I wanted to be here with you today to share some of my thoughts. These past few weeks, it seems that if all been hearing a lot about a talk about religion and its role in politics, religion and its place in the political life of the nation. And I think it's appropriate today at an event that has 17,000 citizens from the state of Missouri that this issue be addressed, especially after what I talked about last evening. Now, I don't come before you this morning to speak as a theologian or a scholar, for that fact, only as one who's been in an active political life in this nation for over 40 years, 4 decades actually. I think as one who has seen so much and who has loved this country and who has seen it change in many different ways, I believe that faith and religion play a role in political life of our nation and always has. And at the church, and by that I mean all churches, all denominations, has had a strong influence on the state. And this has worked to our benefit as a nation. Those who created our country, the founding fathers and mothers, understood that there's a divine order which transcends the human order. They saw the state, in fact, as a form of moral order and felt that the bedrock of moral order is religion. The Mayflower Compact began with the words, "In the name of God, amen." The Declaration of Independence appeals to nature's God and the Creator and the supreme judge of the world. Congress was given a chaplain, and the oaths of office are oaths before God. James Madison in the Federalist Papers admitted that in the creation of our republic, he perceived the hand of the almighty John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, warned that we must never forget the God from whom our blessings flowed. George Washington referred to religion's profound and unsurpassed place in the heart of our nation quite directly in his farewell address in 1796. 7 years earlier, France had erected a government that was intended to be purely secular. This new government would be grounded on reason rather than the law of God. By 1796, the French Revolution had known the reign of terror, and Washington voiced reservations about the ideal that there would be a wise policy without a firm moral and religious foundation. He said, "Of all the dispositions and habits which have led to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable. Supports in vain. Would that man call himself a patriot or a laborer to subvert these finest props of duties of men and citizens? The mere politician and the honest man ought to respect and cherish religion and morality." And he added, "Let us caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion." I believe that George Washington knew the city of man cannot survive without the city of God. that that the visible city will perish without the invisible city. Religion played not only a strong role in our national life, it played a positive role. The abolitionist movement was at heart a moral and religious movement. So was the modern civil rights struggle. And throughout this time, the state was tolerant of religious belief, expression, and practice. Society, too, was tolerant. But in the 1960s, this began to change. We began to make great steps toward secularizing our nation and removing religion from its honored place. In 1962, the Supreme Court in New York prayer case banned the compulsory saying of prayers. In 1963, the court banned the reading of the Bible in our public schools. And I like to say that in some charter schools, the reading of the Bible today is purely acceptable. From that point on, the courts pushed the meaning of the ruling ever outward, so that now our children are not allowed voluntary prayer in most cases. Like I said, again, with some of the charter schools, they are. We even had to pass a law. We passed a special law in Congress just a few years ago to allow student prayer groups the same access to schoolrooms after classes that a young Marxist society, for example, would already enjoy with no opposition. The 1962 decision opened the way to a flood of similar suits. Once religion had been made vulnerable, a series of assaults were made in one court after another, in one issue after another. Cases were started to argue against tax-exempt status for churches. Suits were brought to abolish the words "under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance and to remove "in God we trust" from public documents and from our currency. Today, there are those who are fighting to make sure voluntary prayer is not returned to the classroom, and that still is happening today. And the frustrating thing for the greater majority of Americans who support and understand the special importance of religion in the national life, the frustrating thing is that those who are attacking religion claim they are doing it in the name of tolerance, freedom, and open-mindedness. Question: isn't the real truth that they are intolerant of religion? They refuse to tolerate its importance in our lives. If all children of our country study together, all the many religions in our country wouldn't learn greater tolerance of each other's beliefs. If children prayed together, would they not understand what they have in common? And would this not indeed bring them closer? I believe it does. And this is not to be desired. So I submit to you that those who claim to be fighting for tolerance on this issue may not be tolerant at all. When John F. Kennedy was running for president in 1960, he said that his church would not dictate his presidency any more than he would speak for his church. Just so, and proper, but John Kennedy was speaking in America, in which the role of religion, by that I mean the role of all churches, was secure. Abortion was not a political issue. Prayer was not a political issue. The right of the church schools to operate was not a political issue, and it was broadly acknowledged that religious leaders had a right and duty to speak out on the issues of the day. They've held a place of respect, and a politician would speak or of them with a lack of respect would not survive long in the political arena. And we see so much of that happening in today's environment. It was acknowledged then that religion held a special place, occupied a special territory in the hearts of its citizenry. The climate has changed greatly since then, and since it has, it logically follows that religion needs defenders against those who care only for the interest of the state. There are these days many questions on which religious leaders are obligated to offer their moral and theological guidance. And such guidance is a good and necessary thing to know. how a church and its members feel on expanded public use, expands the perimeter of debate. It does not narrow the debate, it expands the debate. The truth is, politics and morality are indispensable, inseparable, and the morality's foundation is religion. Religion and politics are necessarily related. We need religion as a guide. We need it because we are imperfect, and our government needs the church. Because only those humble enough to admit they are sinners can bring to democracy the tolerance it requires in order to survive. Think about those words. A state is nothing more than a reflection of its citizens. The more decent the citizens, the more decent the state. If you practice a religion, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, or guided by some other faith, then your private life will be influenced by a sense of moral obligation. And so too will your public life. One affects the other. The churches of America do not exist by the grace of the state. The churches of America are not mere citizens of the state. The churches of America exist apart. They have their own vantage point, their own authority. Religion is at its own realm. It makes its own claims. We establish no religion in this country, nor will we ever. We command no worship. We mandate no belief, but we poison our society when we remove its theological underpinnings. The court corruption, when we leave it, befret a belief. All are free to believe or not to believe. All are free to practice a faith or not. But those who believe must be free to speak and act on their belief, to apply moral teaching to public questions. I submit to you that the tolerant society is open to and encouraging of all religions. And this does not weaken us. It strengthens us. It makes us strong. You know, if you look back through history to all those great civilizations, those great nations that rose up to even world dominance and then deteriorated. Think about that. Decline and fell. We find they all had one thing in common. One of the significant forerunners of their fall was the turning away from their God of gods. Without God, there is no virtue, because there is no prompting of the consequence without God. We're mirrored in the material, that flat world that tells us only that we're senseless, that the senseless perceive. Without God, there's not really any society. And without God, democracy will not and cannot endure. If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we'll be a nation going under. And I will tell you, I have that plaque, that very quote in my office. And it's something to think about. If you could just make a personal statement of I'll make a personal statement of my own, actually. You know, in its 3.5 years, I've understood and known better than anyone before the words of Lincoln when he said that he would be the greatest fool on this footstool called Earth if he ever thought that for one moment he could perform the duties of this office without help from one who is stronger than all. And I want you to think about this as I close out this morning. Think about religion in its place in our nation's history. You know, like my remarks said this morning, we swear upon an oath. Every public official who takes an oath of office swears to support and defend, and usually the last words are "So help me God." Let us make that the cornerstone of our nation and our country. I thank you very much for inviting me here today. Thank you for your kindness and your patience. May God keep you, and may we all of us keep God. Thank you very much. Thank you.